Welcome to Quest for the Badge, the podcast where we dive into what it takes to serve and protect as Sheriff of Hancock County, Indiana. I'm your host, Dave Carver, and I'm running for Sheriff, not just to win a badge, but to earn your trust. Each week, we'll explore my vision for a safer, stronger community, hear from the people who know me best, and answer your questions about the future of Hancock County. So buckle up. This is my quest, and you're along for the ride. Hi, this is Dave Carver, and the following message is approved by the committee to elect Carver for Sheriff. Welcome back to Quest for the Badge, the podcast where we dive into real stories behind law enforcement, community safety, and my journey to become the next Sheriff of Hancock County. I'm your host, Dave Carver, a lifelong servant of public safety, from my days as a security police specialist with the United States Air Force to my detective work with the Indianapolis Police Department. Today we're diving into one of the toughest assignments in policing, domestic violence investigations. I'll share a personal story from my career that shaped my approach to justice and community care, a story about breaking new ground as the first male domestic violence investigator for the city of Indianapolis. So buckle up, because this is about grit, compassion, and building something from nothing. It was 1994, and the landscape of domestic violence response was changing. Congress had just passed the Violence Against Women Act, which included the full faith and credit provision, a game changer that required states to honor protection orders issued anywhere in the country. Under a federal grant tied to this new law, I was offered a pioneering role. The role of the first male domestic violence investigator for the city of Indianapolis. It was a humbling opportunity, but let me tell you, it was like stepping into uncharted territory. Our unit was brand new, formed from scratch with no playbook to follow. There were only two of us when we started out. There was me and my classmate, Gina Jones. We had no established parameters, no set protocols, just a mission to protect and serve victims of domestic violence. In fact, we had to figure out everything. We had to figure out how to document cases, how to coordinate with prosecutors, and how to build trust with the survivors. To make things even tougher, we were assigned to work the tactical shift, 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. That's when the city's pulse runs high and calls come in hot. Those late night hours meant responding to raw, volatile situations, often with limited resources or backup. It was an intense time, but it taught me resilience and the importance of creative problem solving. One of the brightest spots in that challenging time for me was my collaboration with the director of the Julian Center, Ann Delaney. The Julian Center is the largest domestic violence shelter in Indianapolis back then, and it may still be now. For over a year, we worked closely together, bridging the gap between law enforcement and victim services. Their team provided critical support, shelter, counseling, legal advocacy. Those things gave survivors a lifeline and helped us build stronger cases. That partnership showed me the power of community collaboration in tackling complex issues like domestic violence. Now let's talk about why these cases are some of the hardest for law enforcement based on what I saw firsthand. Domestic violence investigations are not just about solving a crime. They are about navigating human emotions, broken trust, and systemic hurdles. Here's what makes them so tough. First off, the emotional and relational dynamics. These cases involve intimate relationships, spouses, partners, even family members. Victims might love their abuser or fear breaking up a family. There are times where I'd respond to a call around midnight. I'd see clear signs of abuse, but by morning the victim might recant, hoping things would change. It's heartbreaking, and it complicates building a good case. Second, the lack of direct evidence. Domestic violence often happens behind closed doors with no witnesses. Injuries might be explained as accidents, or there's no physical evidence found at the scene at all. So we'd have to get creative. We'd have to rely on photographs. We'd have to talk victims into getting photos taken, sometimes of their most private areas. We'd have to rely on medical reports from late-night hospital visits and neighbor statements to try to piece things together. Third, we had victim safety concerns. Reporting abuse can escalate the danger. The Full Faith and Credit Act helped us enforce protection orders across state lines, but we still had to act fast and to secure safe housing, often coordinating with places like the Julian Center in the middle of the night to try to protect survivors from retaliation. Fourth, there was often inconsistent victim cooperation. There's a lot of factors involved. Fear, shame, financial dependence. Sometimes these things lead victims to minimize abuse or refuse to testify at all. Within our new unit, we had to learn how to build trust quickly, often in just one conversation, 2 o'clock in the morning, to try to keep victims engaged with the process. The fifth problem, legal and evidentiary hurdles. These domestic violence cases often boil down to he said, she said type arguments, and meeting the burden of proof is very tough. Back then, Indiana's laws sometimes required visible injuries for an arrest, which wasn't always the case. The federal grant gave us training, but we were still trying to figure out how to navigate the legal system without clear guidelines. Sixth, this is one that's very rarely ever talked about, but there's an emotional toll on police officers, detectives, victims assistance units. Night after night, responding to these calls does wear you down. You see the same households, the same cycles of abuse. You want to help, but you can't force someone to leave. And those hours, they meant we were often alone. And we were. We were always managing volatile situations with high emotions, with real risks to our safety. The seventh problem that we encountered. There were societal and cultural factors to be involved in any investigation. Some victims distrusted law enforcement or faced stigma in their own communities. There were language barriers to cross, or fears about immigration status added layers of complexity to our cases. We had to be sensitive to these realities while still doing our job. Eighth, this one happens with a lot of agencies, including smaller agencies like the Hancock County Sheriff's Department. There were resource and training gaps. Our unit was brand new. We lacked specialized tools or personnel that the bigger departments might have. The federal grant helped, but we were still learning on the fly. We were training ourselves, basically, building relationships with shelters like the Julian Center, and advocating for more resources on a daily basis. Despite these challenges, that role shaped me. It taught me that policing isn't just about making arrests. It's often about listening, protecting, and building trust. Working with the Julian Center's director showed me how law enforcement and community organizations can come together to make a real difference. Those late night shifts, tax shifts, those tough calls, they fueled my commitment to serve Hancock County years later, with the same dedication, ensuring that every resident feels safe and heard. As I run for sheriff, I carry those lessons with me. The need for compassion, collaboration, and clear protocols to tackle tough issues like domestic violence. So if you want to join me on this journey, visit my website. It's www.carver4sheriff.org to learn more about my vision. You can also support the campaign with a donation. You can do so by sending a check to P.O. Box 252, Greenfield, Indiana. Make sure that check's addressed to Carver for Sheriff. There's also instructions on the website, or send me a line. Drop me an email at dave@carverforsheriff@gmail.com. Let's build a safer county together, because every community deserves a sheriff who listens and leads with heart. So I want to thank you all for tuning in to Quest for the Badge. This is episode 3. Stay safe, stay engaged, and let's keep pushing for a stronger, safer Hancock County. And as I always say, service, safety, and solutions. That's my pledge to you. We'll see you next time.